Your phone buzzes at 2 a.m. No name, no number, just a single line of text. Come alone. The chapel on 5th. You almost don't go. You almost stay in bed, pull the blanket up, tell yourself it's a wrong number, a prank, a mistake. But 3 weeks ago, you lost your job. 2 weeks ago, you lost your apartment deposit chasing a freelance gig that never paid out. And the man who sent that text is the only person who's called you back in a month. So you go. The chapel is empty, except for one man in a gray coat, sitting in the back pew like he's been waiting for you specifically. He doesn't stand. He doesn't smile. You've been chosen, he says. Not picked, chosen. There's a difference. You ask chosen for what? He slides a coin across the wood, old, heavy, a cross stamped into one face, worn smooth on the other. The Templars never died, he says. They went quiet. You're being invited into the quiet. You laugh because it sounds insane. He doesn't laugh. $11,000, he says, tonight, for doing nothing but listening to the rest of this conversation. You stop laughing. This is level 1, Postulant. The man explains it like a job offer with better benefits and worse paperwork. The order operates in 12 tiers, he says, each one closer to something he won't name yet. Your job tonight is simple. Show up to a warehouse at midnight, stand near a door, say nothing, see nothing, and leave $11,000 richer. You tell yourself it's just standing. You tell yourself you're not actually part of anything. But you go to the warehouse. You stand near the door. Men move crates past you in the dark, and you don't ask what's in them, and the not asking feels like the actual job. At midnight, the coin in your pocket gets warm against your leg, like it's reminding you it's there. You go home with cash in an envelope and a headache you can't explain. This is level 2, sworn. A week later, the gray coat man calls again. This time, there's a ceremony. Small room, 6 other people in plain clothes, candles that feel more decorative than sacred. You place your palm on the coin and repeat words you don't fully understand in a language that sounds older than it should. Afterward, they tell you the rules. You don't ask about the outside order business. You don't tell family what you do at night. You don't say no twice. $18,000 moves into an account that didn't exist yesterday. You call your sister to tell her you got a new contracting job. The lie comes out easier than you expect, and that's the part that actually scares you. This is level 3, watchman. Now you're not standing near doors, you're watching them. You sit in parked cars outside buildings you're never told the purpose of, logging who comes and goes, texting timestamps to a number that never replies with words, only check marks. One night, a woman knocks on your car window, frantic, asking if you've seen a man matching a description that matches the building you're watching. You say no. You watched him walk in 40 minutes ago. $26,000 this time. Your savings account has more money in it than it's had your entire adult life. Your sister asks why you've been distant. You tell her work's just busy. You tell yourself it's just watching. This is level 4, bearer. The gray coat man introduces himself, finally, as Aldrich. He says you've impressed people who don't impress easily. Your new job involves carrying, sealed cases between locations, no questions, no opening, no detours. One case is heavier than the others. You don't ask why. $34,000. Aldrich tells you the coin isn't just a token anymore. It's a key. Certain doors only open for people who carry it. You feel the weight of that more than the weight of any case. Your sister stops calling as much. You tell yourself that's normal. People drift. This is level 5, confessor. This is the level where they take something instead of giving you something. You're brought into a stone-walled room beneath a building that, from the outside, looks like an accounting firm. Aldrich sits across from you with a leather book and asks you to confess your worst secret. the real one, the one you've never said out loud to anyone. You resist. He waits. The silence stretches until it becomes unbearable, and you give him the truth, the actual truth, the one that's been sitting in your chest since you were a teenager. He writes it down. Now we're bound, he says, not by money, by knowledge. $41,000. But for the first time, the money feels like an afterthought. This is level 6, vowed. They take your old phone, give you a new one with 3 contacts and no internet browser. They tell you your sister's name has come up in a routine background sweep, and that it's nothing to worry about, as long as you keep doing well. You understand, without being told outright, that this is not a coincidence. This is a leash. $55,000. You start sleeping less. You start flinching at unknown numbers. You start wondering how far up this actually goes, and whether anyone has ever successfully walked away. You tell yourself you'll get out after this level. You don't. This is level 7, Hand of the Order. Now you're the one delivering the 2 a.m. texts. You sit across from a stranger in a different chapel, sliding a different coin across different wood, and you hear yourself say the exact words Aldrich said to you, almost verbatim, like a script burned into you without your permission. The recruit asks if this is insane. You don't laugh either. $70,000. Aldrich tells you you're being groomed for something he calls the inner circle, and that the next level is the one where people stop asking questions because they stop having anyone left to ask. You think of your sister's voice, how long it's been since you've heard it without a script of your own running underneath it. This is level 8, Keeper of Secrets. You're given access to the Order's actual ledgers, names, payments, dates that stretch back further than you want to think about. Senators, surgeons, a judge whose face you recognize from the news. You realize the Order didn't recruit you because you were special. They recruited you because you were replaceable, and broke, and quiet enough not to make noise on the way down. $93,000. Aldrich tells you that everyone who reaches this level eventually asks the same question. How do I stop? And that the answer is always the same. You don't. This is level 9, Voice of the Chapter. You're put in charge of recruiting your own postulants now. 3 people, handpicked, broken the exact specific way the Order likes them broke. One of them reminds you so much of yourself 5 months ago that your hands shake slightly when you slide the coin across the table. He asks if this is insane. You say, there's a difference between insane and chosen. You don't remember deciding to say it. It just comes out, like Aldrich's voice borrowed your mouth. $110,000. You call your sister that night. She doesn't pick up. You tell yourself you'll try again tomorrow. This is level 10, Shadow Pillar. They finally tell you what's in the cases you used to carry. You wish they hadn't. You sit very still for a long time afterward, and Aldrich watches you sit still, and he doesn't say anything, because he already knows there's nothing left for you to say. $150,000 moves into an account you no longer recognize as belonging to a person who has a sister, a childhood, a name anyone outside this room still uses. This is level 11, the 12. There are only 12 people above Aldrich. Tonight, you become the 13th voice in a room that, until tonight, only had 12 chairs. They bring out a new chair for you. You realize, sitting down, that somewhere in the last 11 levels you stopped being recruited and started being installed. The coin in your pocket doesn't feel warm anymore. It feels like it's always been room temperature, and you were the one who changed. This is level 12, Heir of the Order. Aldrich is old now, older than you remember him being 5 months ago, though it's only been 5 months. He hands you the gray coat. They never died, he says, the same words from the chapel, except now you're the one who's supposed to say them next. You ask him what happens to people who reach this level, He smiles for the first time since you've known him. "You'll see," he says. "Tonight, there's someone you need to meet. They lost their job 3 weeks ago. Lost an apartment deposit 2 weeks ago. Haven't heard their phone ring in a month. Your new phone buzzes, a name you don't recognize yet, but will. You put on the coat. You go to the chapel. You sit in the back pew and you wait. And somewhere outside, a phone buzzes at 2 a.m., and a person who isn't you yet stares at a message with no name attached, deciding whether to stay in bed or finally go.